we start?
We're live. We're live. We're live. We're live.
Oh, okay.
We're live now.
Well, I can say this anyway. I'm so delighted to have met you. Because one of the things that the Art of Living Foundation teaches the children in our programs is to make a new friend every day, to expand our awareness, expand our understanding. And so you are my new friend, and I'm delighted that we've had this opportunity because it really warms my heart.
Oh, it's in fact, and what a introduction. So my name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine, and I am blushing behind the camera. This is TMS Roundtable Global. I am in Israel. It is 8:00. Our guest tonight, Dr. Ronnie Newman, is in Florida, right?
Yes.
And Rose is sound asleep. Rose and I are now streaming a little different times, twice together. We're streaming in the month, but occasionally we're alone. So we don't have to get up at wee hours in the morning or stay up to wee hours at night to meet you. Plus, we're trying to reach more people in Asia and America at better times. So I am happy to see some people listening. Rose does a really good job of figuring out the guest and introductions. I'm going to come from the hip. So what happened was, and how I met Ronnie, what happened was many people watch our show and we're blown away. We're in awe. And a gentleman said, he sent an email, I watch your show. It's really wonderful. It's helped me. And I'm very involved in something called the Art of Living Foundation. And it's all about, and he said a few things and I thought, okay, let's see. And then I went and Googled it and I was blown away. And then I said, I want you to be on our show. His name was? Watson. And he said, no, I'm getting you someone else. And then here we are. I think we'll be friends for life. Ronnie Newman, welcome to our show. I want to hear all about the Art of Living and the amazing organization that now many more people will know about. Go.
Wonderful. Great. So the Art of Living Foundation is a nonprofit humanitarian educational organization. We're also a United Nations non-governmental organization active in 156 countries worldwide. Wow. And one of the tenets of the Art of Living Foundation is that a pain-free body, a disease-free body, and a trauma-free mind and blissful emotions are the birthright of every human being. And toward that end, we teach time-honored yogic breathing practices that are evidence-based and have been adapted to modern times by Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, who is probably the world authority in yogic breathing practices. And so we serve society by strengthening the individual, by offering these time-honored yogic breathing practices to individuals globally. And we have special programs for people with PTSD, including in Israel and the United States and in Europe, and Australia and Africa, and really all over the world. We're active on every continent except Antarctica. And these practices basically create the physiological basis for well-being, because we know that our mind and body and spirit are intimately connected. And we know that our emotions are not just in our head, they're everywhere in our body, and they're transmitted there almost instantaneously by chemical messengers. Wow. And what these breathing practices do is they rebalance the system to the optimal state of well-being that every individual is meant to live in. And by doing so, what happens, we are probably the largest service organization in the world. There are over 400 million people globally who have either taken our programs or benefited from our humanitarian and service projects, whether it's women's empowerment or trauma relief or sustainable environments. Excuse me. Yeah. Or peak performance in athletes or government achievement. Through the gamut of it, our programs have impacted over 400 million people, because and here's the geeky scientist in me, human beings are actually wired, as a species, we are wired to perform altruistic behavior. Because when we do perform service, when we help another, whether it's picking up a child who falls and cries, or picking up, like I did yesterday, picking up garbage on the beach out of respect for Mother Earth, these things actually stimulate the pleasure center in the brain, the same area, the exact same area that's stimulated by cocaine, but without damaging.
Exactly. That's a lot of the pain doctors talk about that, because you just said the same exact analogy. It's fascinating.
Yes, we're wired as a species.
I could pick up some trash on the beach or do cocaine and get the same chemical reaction.
Without destroying.
I'm going to the beach.
Right, because the issue with cocaine and things like that is you need to keep increasing more and more to get the same reaction, and it actually destroys the capacity of the body to experience it naturally. So it's just remarkable.
And the natural thing, I'm sure the effect of going to the beach, picking it up, the thought process is a whole nother science, rather than, look, also the cocaine is just like cigarettes or alcohol, and I'm not against anything in balance, but all that will not allow us to utilize our own mechanisms.
Right. It's what it says, it blunts the capacity of the brain structure to experience it naturally.
Wow. So this guru, who is not just any holy man, I mean, he wants to help people, he wants to share his teachings, but to come and do something all over the world to make a difference. Tell us a little bit about him.
He's absolutely remarkable. He's right now on world tour. He was just in Europe, and now he's in the United States. And his schedule, he is 66, and his schedule would exhaust a 20-year-old. He has been in, he was in Florida for 3 days, and then he went to Washington, D.C. for 2 days and had a program with the Surgeon General on emotional well-being. Wow. In Washington, D.C., and a meeting with Congress and a program for the public. Then he went on to Philadelphia and did the same schedule there for a day and a half. Then he was in New York City for 2 days. Then he was in Boone, North Carolina at our International Center, where he did a 4-day program, a health retreat on self.
Can we give him a nickname?
We call him Gurudev for short. It's
Gurudev.
Because, it's Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
Okay.
And he, because of his humanitarian work and his global work all over the world, he's been given 28 honorary PhDs from countries all over the world. He's been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 3 times for his conflict resolution work with terrorist organizations. He's been given the highest civilian honors by 18 countries. He's absolutely remarkable, and the humblest, most accessible person you ever want to meet.
Wow. Is there movies about him? And besides YouTube, it's like, how can people learn about him?
You can go to srisri.org, SRI.org. Yeah. And it's absolutely remarkable. Okay. It's absolutely remarkable. And the thing is,
go ahead.
Yeah, SRI.org.
Okay.
And the thing is, he's still the most humble, kindest person you ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And he went, for example, when I was at our institute just a week ago, I actually got home just a few days ago. He went into the kitchen and was helping the kitchen staff prepare the food. This is a man who gets diplomatic entry.
It's his own little insecurities. It's his social intimacy skills.
It's social intimacy and his connectedness, and he met there were hundreds and hundreds of people there, and he greeted every single person, and he always says, "We're just the same."
It's like the Dalai Lama. It's like a brother of Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama.
They're actually good friends.
Yeah. So yes. Tell me.
If you can call it friends,
right?
They have the same vision,
right? Did he have a trauma that he made him like? What happened in his life that brought him? Because sometimes this is what it takes. Something deep inside of him that draws him to want to go to this this measure?
Well, since you're asking, I'll answer honestly. There are some people who are born on earth who know from a very young age that they have a mission, or what the Buddhists call a dharma, a life purpose. We all have a life purpose, and some people just know it from very, very young. And when he was a little boy, when he was actually 3 years old, he began reciting by memory the scriptures from the Vedic tradition of India, the Hindu tradition. Wow. And his teacher actually thought she was mocking him because she would start the sentence, and instead of him repeating it, he would finish it. And so he went, actually, the teacher went to his parents, and and that's when they discovered that he could recite it all verbatim, even though he'd never been taught it. And when he would play soccer as a little boy, because in India, that was the big thing, was soccer, with the ball. Yeah. And the other team knew that if they would send the ball to Ravi, as he was known as a little boy, that they would always win, because he said these feet are not meant to kick anything, not even a ball. And, he knew from a very young age that, he would be traveling around the world, and that he was there, to help make every person's life a celebration. And so, it just started actually from that. And in fact, Mahatma Gandhi, the tradition in India is that a spiritual teacher would have only one main student at a time. They wouldn't have a whole class; they'd have just one student. And the nickname for Mahatma Gandhi's spiritual teacher was Bangalore. And after Bangalore passed, because according to astrology, which is very prominent in India, it's slightly different than Western astrology, the Vedic astrology. It portended the life mission of Sri Sri. And so Bangalore actually knocked on the door of Sri Sri's parents' house and asked to take Sri Sri as his student.
Wow.
After Mahatma Gandhi passed. And so Sri Sri was mentored with Mahatma Gandhi, with Bangalore, for a number of years.
Wow.
And so it's just, fortunately, not everybody has to suffer horrible trauma, although it does serve a purpose in bringing many people to understand what their life work is.
Yeah.
And it's part of, since you're in Israel, the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, healing the world, that every human being comes into the world with what are called like sacred wounds.
Right.
And that we spend our life healing those wounds within ourselves, because when we heal it within ourselves, it heals the whole world. Beautiful. And some of us come in knowing how we can serve the world without having a major injury. And Sri Sri is one of those fortunate people.
Yeah. And he probably has enormous empathy and ability to feel what other people are going through.
Tremendous.
This is important. This is what makes him so special. And, I've been around and done a lot of things in my life, and I've not heard of him, though I have been involved with Mahatmas, and I was involved with an Indian guru, and and so I was involved. But I imagine I'm just so happy my path has crossed yours, because I would not have heard of this. And there's even an Art of Living Foundation in Israel, which I'm going to contact.
Yes.
Tell us about the breathing, because breathing is what all of the doctors are talking about: the breath, the moment, the ability to relax this, the parasympathetic nervous system, and all this we know, and we're all working hard at being mindful of breathing and being mindful and using the breath to heal. But this is something specific about the foundation. If you can share with us about that.
Oh, sure. And I'd like to give you just a little bit of background to understand the power of the breath. As you talked about, in case people are not familiar with the sympathetic nervous system, that's one of the two main branches of our automatic nervous system, or our called the autonomic nervous system, which controls all of our involuntary functions. And thank God we have an autonomic nervous system. We don't have to think about, digesting our food and beating our heart and eliciting saliva and all of the automatic functions of our nervous system, beating our heart. And there are two main branches of the automatic or autonomic nervous system. And they work in tandem. As one increases, the other decreases, like the opposite sides of, I think of it like a seesaw, like we all rode when we were kids.
Great analogy.
And the sympathetic nervous system, branch of the autonomic nervous system, is the stress response part of our autonomic nervous system. And you can remember S for stress, S for sympathetic. And that's what triggers, that's the fight or flight response that we have. And so when we're in stress, then the fight or flight response is elicited and it jacks up our heartbeat and it stops our digestion and it narrows our focus. Mm-hmm. So all of our energies go towards survival. It's meant to protect us in life-threatening situations, but it's only intended for short periods of time, like when our proverbial caveman ancestors were presented with a saber-toothed tiger.
Right.
Or in current days, you're crossing the street and a drunk driver in an SUV is barreling down the street. It releases all of your energy so that you quickly get out of the way of that SUV. But once the SUV passes, the system is supposed to calm down again. And what calms the system down is the other arm of the seesaw, which is the peaceful parasympathetic nervous system. And you can remember P for peace, P for parasympathetic. Beautiful. Okay, and as I said, they go in tandem like this. Now, the autonomic nervous system is automatic. It's completely out of our control, except for one function. And that, of course, is breath.
Wow.
Or respiration. Because in addition to the fact that I'm 100% confident that all of us were breathing when we started this session, nobody was aware of the breath. It happens automatically, yet we all know how easy it is to control the breath. We can breathe fast, we can breathe slow, we can hold the breath on the inhale, we can hold the breath on the exhale, we can breathe fast or slow. And because it is the only function of that combined autonomic nervous system that we have control over, it's a powerful window into that autonomic nervous system to allow us to have a say over whether the stressful sympathetic or the peaceful parasympathetic is dominating. And really importantly, it allows us to create what is called autonomic homeostasis, or that ideal position that we were created to live in, with a perfect balance between the two.
And one that's moving, there's motion, but it goes this way. It's like motion.
Constant motion, because if we're sitting on a couch and reading a book and there's a sudden crash in the kitchen and we have to jump up, we need the sympathetic nervous system to kick in to increase our heart rate, because we're going to jump up so we don't fall on the floor. But, it's not supposed to be cranking and cranking and cranking for hours. And that's the problem in modern society, is that stress tends to be chronic. And interestingly, even in people who don't feel stressed, there's something that science has identified. It's called ambient racket. And it's that background noise. There's music in elevators and, music in stores and restaurants, to my dismay, even have televisions going these days. And even just the traffic running by the door, the nervous system doesn't know the difference between the rustling of a cobra in the bushes, possibly, and the ambient racket of traffic keeping running by. And so our stress response is elevated all of the time. In fact, I read an interesting study recently where people who live by busy highways, that their lifespan is on average 7 years shorter than people who live in quiet neighborhoods. And the speculation is because of that ambient racket, that their stress response is continually heightened, which is like driving with the brakes on, and it wears out the system faster.
Wow.
So to bring it back to the breath, it's really, really, really important during current times to have a vehicle to calm the stress response and restore homeostasis. And the breath is the only function that we have that can allow us to do that so rapidly. And that's the beauty of breathing practices in general, And, I can actually teach a breath practice during the session if you would like.
It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful.
Do you want to do that now, or
yeah, let's. Well, no, first just because look, there's many different ways. I help Rose and I do some teaching about the presence process, and it's just a certain kind of breathing, and it's very natural breathing. And then people do the Wim Hof breathing. So there's all these breathings they're all good, but they're different. And I think that people are going to be drawn to a certain kind of breathing, and the research is behind each breathing. Do it consistently, do it mindfully. Please still tell us first about this particular breathing.
Okay, well, what I'm going to teach you right now is a breathing technique called straw breath, and it's used to calm the system. We actually do a lot of work with inner gangs and terrorist organizations globally, as I mentioned. And this is when things get really heated, or people are even really anxious. You can use this breath to calm the sympathetic response very quickly. And it only takes 2 or 3 minutes. And I'll share a story with you of when I used this. My mother, God bless her, when she was 93, she was still, independent. She was driving. She was living on her own. Wow. And she went running to get the phone because, God forbid, she should miss a phone call. And she lost her balance and fell flat back on the tile and had a huge hematoma, a huge, bulge here and bleeding. And fortunately, she didn't lose consciousness. And she called me, and I raced over and I took her to the hospital. And they, did all the tests, no broken bones, no permanent damage, which in itself was a miracle and a blessing. But when people sustain a trauma like that, the stressful sympathetic nervous system stays heightened for hours, and as a survival mechanism, because it's surveilling the body, because it's likely that there'll be a break in the skin and bacteria or infection can get in. Or
2-3 days later, something can happen. So the body knows that it's not.
Right. So the body stays in surveillance mode, the sympathetic nervous system, for hours. And because of other medication that my mother was on, they couldn't give her anything more to bring down her blood pressure. It was 199 over 100.
Wow. Which,
for those who are not familiar, means that even though the fall didn't do her in, she was at high risk of having a stroke. Wow. And that would do her in. Wow. And so the nurse came in and took her hand and said, all of the measures are, everything is fine, but you need to calm down now. You can relax knowing that there's no permanent damage. You'll be sore, you'll be black and blue, but nothing permanent. And she leaves, and I'm watching the monitors, and her blood pressure is still 199. It goes 198, and it goes to 200. It's unchanging. Wow. And after about, 5 or 6 minutes or 10 minutes, I realized that they couldn't do anything, because the doctor also came in. He was very sweet. And he said, and I'm here to really reassure you, you just need to relax. He went fairy dust out of his pocket and tossed it on her, It didn't do anything. I realized I had to do something. So I said, Ma, I'm going to teach you a breath that we teach to the inner city gangs.
Oh my God.
Together. And I taught her the straw breath, and her blood pressure came down 30 points in 2 minutes.
Whoa. Unbelievable. I mean, yeah. She trusted you. She gave it up. She surrendered. She just followed. She also cooperated. And this is, but just what a story and a situation for even someone who's amazing. And this is something, I'm sure there's lots of stories.
Yeah, but the nice thing about this practice is we don't need to reserve it for dramatic situations.
Right.
If you're stuck in traffic and you're late for a meeting, or what happened to a friend of mine the other day, she was in the grocery store and she was needing to get out, and the person in front of her was counting pennies out of a piggy bank, and she was like, ah! And you can do this, especially if you're a type A personality, to calm yourself and help to restore balance.
Yeah.
So, and that's a nice thing, if you're in, because nobody will know some breathing practices are very obvious, and you can't exactly do it in a boardroom without, losing credibility.
Well, and then we're talking about even knowing that you're stressed, even knowing and realizing that just for the world to know, and I've learned this, and from all the different, doctors I've been blessed to learn from, if we can understand our anxiety through understanding our breath or using our breath to calm our anxiety because we're in touch with our anxiety, this is the precursor for pain and autoimmune disease. So if we can stop there, we're closing down the medical system, and we're just taking care of ourselves and being our own doctor. This is what the show is about. So here you're saying another way that we can understand ourselves, know ourselves, and really, really prevent chronic pain and autoimmune disease. So I'm, again, so privileged to be on the other end of this information. And it's available. It's free. It's online. I mean, the Art of Living Foundation in how many countries?
156.
Wow.
And counting.
And counting. Yeah. So go ahead. So tell us.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Just one thing I want to mention about that is one of the beauties of specific breathing practices is you don't have it like hacks into the nervous system, so you don't have to address directly the anxiety, the depression, the stress levels, because it's automatic and it brings it down. There's been a lot of, we'll teach the sky breath in a minute, the breathing practice that has the most comprehensive effects and is the most powerful that I've seen in terms of reducing the risk factors for pain and the precursors for pain is a particular practice called sky breath. It's a sky breath meditation, and that is taught by the Art of Living Foundation. And that practice actually takes, it can be learned in three-hour sessions. It's usually over a weekend, 3 hours Friday night, Saturday or Sunday, or if you're in Israel and the Sabbath is different, it's at different times, and the schedules are flexible in the world, and once you've learned it, you're set for life, because different breathing practices have different effects. And this one, the sky breath meditation, involves different rhythms and patterns of the breath of different intensities and duration. And it is honestly, in my 43 years of research in mind-body medicine, including when I started at Harvard, I have never seen anything more powerful and more rapid in balancing the sympathetic nervous system, and importantly, sustaining the benefits after, because some practices will calm the stress response in the short term, but it doesn't create long-term resilience. But what the sky breath does is it actually not only calms it in the instant, but almost more importantly, it makes us more resilient to the same stressors that plague everybody in the future. And it's not just on the level of psychology, the physiology changes, the level of cortisol, for example, which is the least popular hormone because it's the stress hormone. The cortisol levels drop to half in the very first session of sky breath. And what's interesting is that when you look at people over time, the longer people practice, the lower the stress level at baseline before they actually sit to do their practice. And one of the studies compared sky breath to relaxing in an armchair and observation of breath and doing gentle breathing. And when you look at the difference, even though both had a benefit, the sky breath was twice the benefit of the other, and it was sustained after the fact, which is really, really
Yes, it's unbelievable. Really, really, really amazing. So go ahead, share with us.
So this is the sky breath, the straw breath. And what you would do with the straw breath is, when we were little kids and we would, I still do it sometimes with environmentally acceptable straws, not plastic, is how instead of, like, you have chocolate milk or juice, and instead of sipping in, you can't resist, like, blowing bubbles into whatever you're drinking.
So you're blowing out this, you're blowing in the straw, not from
blowing out through the straw. So we're going to take a normal breath in through the nose. Then we're going to purse our lips like we're holding a straw and breathe out. Just allow the exhale to come naturally. We're not like blowing out a candle, but just. So again, we breathe in through the nose, and then we purse our lips and we breathe out through a straw. And you
it's
can
not, it's not an exhale with your lips pursed, or that's
it
kind
is
of
an exhale with the lips pursed. You breathe
okay.
in, the lips are relaxed on the inhale. On the exhale, we hold the straw, we purse the lips, and we breathe out through the straw. Normal breath
That's
in.
called the straw breath. And this is what you taught your mother in the hospital?
Yes, yes. This is what I did with my mother, and we can all do it together. So again, it's breathing in through the nose and then purse the lips and breathe out through the straw. Just a normal breath. Allow the breath to go on its own. And when it's time to take a breath in again, through the nose and then purse the lips again. Breathe out through the straw. And you can close your eyes and allow the hands to rest comfortably on the lap with the palms facing the ceiling, if you're able. And we can just do this together. In through the nose. Out through the straw. In and out. And just continue. And as you continue, you may notice the exhale becoming longer. That's natural. And let's do one or two more. And when you complete the next exhale, you can relax the lips. Allow the breathing to return to normal. Notice how you're feeling inside. And when you feel ready, you may open the eyes.
So I will say something. A yoga teacher told me recently that the mouth is for eating and the nose is for breathing. So I imagine there are many yogis. Because I think that's a beautiful flow, that's a beautiful flow. And there's obviously something happening when I'm bringing breath through my mouth and something's special is really happening. So I think the breath is a fascinating thing, and many people are studying it, and many people are commenting on it. And, it obviously is being used so much in body-mind healing because of the effect it can have on our chemicals. And what's fascinating is, my chemicals are changing. My chemicals are changing right now, and I can't study them, but I can just trust that my chemicals are changing and I'm going to be relaxed. And, even if I had some chronic pain, which I don't, I would be able to, this is the whole thing about being in the moment and being in the present. I'm not thinking about my pain. I'm thinking about my breath,
Right. Well, the thing about the breath is that, as we say, it's automatic, and that it has a direct impact on the physiology.
Yeah, that's what I wanted you to answer. In fact, I'm having you answer Gopal's question. What are your inputs for autoimmune chronic life-threatening disease?
Well, we know with and thank you for the question. It's a really important one, and I'm glad to be able to provide this, because when you look at autoimmune disease or chronic pain or any condition for that matter, but specifically in these two areas, there's a growing awareness that a biopsychosocial approach, meaning we address the biology, we address the psychology, and we address the physiology, we address the whole thing, because otherwise the treatment is really incomplete. Because as I said, our emotions are not just in our head, they're everywhere in our body, and they're transmitted there instantaneously.
Pain is an emotion processed in the same place as the other emotions. Pain is just a physical manifestation.
The aspect of pain, just to remember in context that pain is helpful since it alerts the brain to tissue damage and provides useful information about the type and location of the pain. However, when the signal starts to impede our ability to survive and to function optimally, that's when it has to be reduced. And that's the power of the breath, because number one, what the breath actually does, when the sympathetic nervous system, that stress response, is elevated, and when we're in a situation of chronic pain, which is a stressor for the system, or whether we have fear about pain or fear about prognosis, what that does is it actually increases our experience of pain, because it affects the pain receptors in the body. It sort of makes them hypervigilant. Mm-hmm. And I like to think of it like when you have a black and blue mark, the same pressure that doesn't bother you normally, when you have a bruise, a black and blue mark, and you touch it, you're much more sensitive. Mm-hmm. And that's what stress does. That's what I would call them, all emotions are valuable, but I would say the emotions that we try to get rid of, the negative emotions.
Right. Or let's just say if we're not accepting an emotion, we're hurting ourselves. We're in conflict.
Right. So any kind of resistance or any unpleasant emotion, fear, anxiety, sorrow that we have been diagnosed with this, all of these things actually heighten the experience of pain and allow it to be more chronic and more intense. The intensity and duration of the pain increase.
Right.
So
So
this is the beauty of breathing practices, because our breath and emotions, number one, as I just mentioned, the breath will actually allow the stress response, which is understandably triggered when we have chronic pain or when we're in fear over a diagnosis or in sorrow. Mm-hmm. Then the stress response is elevated and we experience the pain more intensely and for longer periods of time. And it also further contributes to inflammation in the body. And we know that inflammation is one of the physiological components of the experience of pain. Mm-hmm. And quote, negative emotions, those unwanted emotions that we resist, actually cause the release of what are called pro-inflammatory cytokines.
Exactly.
Chemicals of our immune system that cause inflammation and aggravate the situation and make it worse. So by just calming the stress response and being able to calm the emotions, we're already well ahead of the game. And it's an essential component of healing and of betterment. Now, the other aspect of the breath that's really important, which is why I recommend it so strongly in situations of chronic pain and particularly autoimmune disease as well, is that we now know that the breath and emotions are a two-way street. We have an emotion and then a change in the breath happens automatically. I'll give you an example. I live, as we talked, in sunny Florida. And I like to leave my front door open, even though I don't have a screen. And we've got a lot of little lizards here. Mm-hmm. And the other day I went into the kitchen and I flung open my kitchen cabinet and this lizard came flying out of the cabinet straight at me. And it scared the bejeebers out of me. And what happened to my breath was like, and my heart was pounding like this. But as soon as I realized I was only a little lizard and it wasn't a Gila monster, then my breath was like, and my heartbeat settled down. So we know that every emotion creates a specific rhythm in the breath. But what's so wonderful that modern science has discovered, which ancient sages thousands of years ago in India and other parts of the world recognized, is that it's a two-way street, that not only do our emotions change our breath, but if we change the pattern of our breath, we can actually transform our emotions. So breathing in particular ways will calm the stress and will actually transform those emotions that are so debilitating. And so pushing out the emotion is not very, I mean, how many times have we willed ourselves not to be anxious or
Right. Right.
You know, these emotions come uninvited and they don't listen to us when we ask them to leave.
Well, but if we accept them, they'll leave.
Well, that is part of it. The other part of it that is a hack that is even faster than that and allows for us to accept it is to attend to the breath immediately.
Very good.
And that allows for the emotions to dissipate.
Beautiful. I want to add two things to what you said before the topic is important. And I've learned from this book called The Presence Process, which Dr. Sarno had talked about and said that it helps. It's wonderful. Many processes help you get in touch with your repressed emotions. And the breathing is a very big thing in that book. But what I learned the most, which is a way that we can calm the body down, calm the chemicals down, prevent autoimmune reaction, is to respond to the lizard, respond to the fall. I'm not saying don't feel your emotions, right, but respond to your anger, respond to his anger, respond to your fear. Somehow get into a habit of being able to respond doesn't mean you're numb. It means you're learning that this is the way out. This is the way through, is to respond. The second thing about what you said beautifully, and if anybody wants to text me or PM me on this page, I work with Dr. David Hanscom, who's a spinal deformity surgeon who's very much studying mind body, doesn't do spine surgery anymore. He wrote a beautiful 44-page paper on the on the inflammation and the cytokines. And what's so beautiful about it is that when we have an anxious thought, now again, the brain doesn't know if it's anxious. I'm happy. I'm anxious. Oh, I almost crossed the street and it turned green or red. Or I'm anxious because I'm scared. The body feels reaction. It feels stress, and it'll react that way with chemicals. If we have these anxious thoughts and we're reacting, it will change the neurology and it will change the chemistry. So we're getting down to our thoughts control many things. Now, people say you can't control your thoughts. You can. Once you start breathing and being mindful, you are not only, and letting go, which is the ultimate form of control, letting go, you will be able to control your thoughts, and responding to them is controlling them. Would you say that in a way?
Yeah, and I would add something here about the value of the breath as well. There was a study done in Sweden where they took people and they gave them what are called cognitive reappraisal strategies. That's how we interpret the things that happen to us. And they taught people strategies so that they would look at a situation from a more broader perspective, so that they would not be as distressed when the situation came up. And what they found is that while both groups benefited from the cognitive reappraisal strategies, viewing things in a different way so that we respond instead of react, what they saw was one group got the cognitive strategies only. One group got the cognitive strategies plus sky breath. And what they found was that the ability to sustain the capacity to reappraise in terms of, there's something called the P300 ERP, certain brainwave patterns and late latency potentials, that the group that also did the breathing were able to sustain those cognitive reappraisal strategies longer. So the breathing practices actually sustain the capacity for whatever else we do. And we need to do everything. You're 1,000% correct. We need to learn how to respond rather than react. We need to it benefits us to put in the energy to question those knee-jerk reactions that we have, to support our healing and our wellness. And at the same time, what's fertilizer for that? That's how I think of the breathing practices, that whatever we do is important and valuable, like diet, like cognitive reappraisal. However, if you add the breathing practices to it, it's like fertilizer to the crops.
And it's with you all the time. It's free. It's in the mail. It's overnight. It's here. And it is a powerful, powerful gift. And it can become a habit. I always say you don't have to be the guru or the Dalai Lama. We can do this. I have now, 170 broadcasts, half in Hebrew and half in English with Rose. People healing from so many conditions, so many autoimmune conditions, everything from MS to cancer to arthritis. And each one of them took responsibility. And each one of them did breathing techniques, did Qigong, did a lot of imagination, which is all working with the breath. Because we're talking about making the subconscious conscious. And it's like we're connecting our soul and mind, our soul and spirit, our heart and mind. And the way to do it is people say, well, how can I remember? Your breath. Breath is an incredible tool. And I want to just mention before I forget that Gina said that breath and vagal tones help with stress. I don't think I've ever heard the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, yes. Yes, absolutely. The vagus nerve is the largest cranial nerve that we have coming out of the brain. And it's intimately involved with our experience of emotion.
Every system, I think.
Yes, it innervates every system in the body. It's major, and breathing is a practice that hacks into vagal tone function. Right. So it is very, very powerful. And to answer the question about terminal illness as well, the same practices, because this is a comprehensive practice when we use the breath, it definitely also has an impact on life-threatening disease. And you mentioned cancer. I'll just mention, for example, there was a study done, again, with the sky breath. That's the primary area of my focus with breath, which is one of the reasons I talk about it. Also, because it is taught by certified instructors everywhere in the world. So no matter where you learn, you can be assured of the same results. And so anyway, there was a study done, I think this one was done in India, where they took cancer patients and who were in remission, and half of them got treatment as usual, and half of them got, follow-up as usual, plus they learned sky breath. And one of the things that happened, which there's no direct control over, is that there's something called natural killer cells, which are the first line of defense of our immune system against new and recurring cancers. And these levels are abnormally low in cancer patients. And they don't really know why, but the assumption is because of the chemotherapy and the emotional duress that accompanies cancer. And what was found is that compared to treatment as usual, patients who did the sky breath within 6 weeks, their natural killer cells began to significantly increase, whereas they did not in the group getting treatment as usual. So any condition that we're focusing on, I think of it, the mind-body-spirit complex is like a table with 4 legs, and you pull any one leg and the whole table goes with you. And so it's the same thing, whether you're looking to just calm the emotions or boost immunity or, increase length of life, which is something we've talked about as well. No matter why you're doing it, it affects everything in a very global way. And the beauty is that, yes, like the straw breath, we can do those practices in times of duress. The beauty of practices like sky breath are that it boosts overall resilience of the mind-body-spirit complex, so that when you come to, it's like closing the barn door before the horse escapes. Once the horse escapes and you close the door, but you want to create resilience, and that's what the practices do. They stabilize. It creates, again, that term autonomic homeostasis, so we become more resilient to the same stress that plague everybody.
Wow. But first of all, and also as we learn, when you do it, when you do it more, it becomes a habit. How do we get up every morning and brush our teeth? How do we just do it? We're in touch with it, what we feel like in the morning. We're in touch with that, and we remember it's automatic. So people who practice these breathing techniques, it becomes automatic, and we can tap into it anytime. And it's also there for it's like unbelievable. And we could get spiritual, like God gave us this. It's free. It's everyone. I mean, it's something that could change the way the world functions.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. And, I'm so happy to hear. I mean, again, our work is so important that we're doing, and we have an incredible membership and audience of people that want this work, but it's still only 20-30% of the population, because most people aren't interested in. I find it fascinating. I could talk about this all night, Ronnie, all night. So we're here educating, and we're here, one soul at a time, one person at a time, one mitzvah at a time, like one good deed at a time. And all we can do is two new people. I don't know these people that came to the show, so I'm thrilled. And this is an amazing topic. In fact, number one, I'm going to contact the Israel Center and get someone to come speak in Hebrew. Two, I would love you to come to the Hebrew show, and we'll translate, because I just love talking with you. You are a busy woman, and you didn't think twice about coming to talk on our show. And I'm like, so tell me a little bit about you and what your mission and your joy and your passion. That poor lizard had no chance with you, So tell me a little bit about you.
Which arises, I actually caught it and took it outside, because I didn't think it would find its way out without me.
You're fearless.
I've learned, in case anybody has any bugs or anything, if you take a large plastic container and then you slip a piece of cardboard under it, you can capture any critter and bring it back to its natural habitat.
I've done that here in Israel. I've done it because I live in lots of critters. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about you.
So for me, I actually was how I came to the breathing practices. Is that what you want to know? Or
yeah, a little bit about your past and what brought you.
Well, I was always interested in, quote, full potential of human beings. I remember my freshman year in college, when we learned that humankind uses just a small percentage of their mental potential, and that Einstein was predicted to use 7% of his mental potential. I thought, why is this? And what can we do to develop our full potential? And I started reading Abraham Maslow's work on, full potential and flourishing and all of that. And it just captured me. And then I actually came to Israel when I was 19. Wow. And I went to climb Mount Sinai. There were these tours of Mount Sinai, and I walked into the monastery on the base of Mount Sinai.
It's not in Israel. It's not in Israel. It's in Iran, I think, or Iraq.
Well, at the time, anyway. It was Israel administered, not Mount Sinai. Was it Mount Sinai? No, it must have been Masada.
It was Mount Sinai. But anyway, it's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it must have been Masada.
Masada. It's a Masada. Masada.
Okay. So anyway, we're at this thing, and I walk into the room that I'm staying in the monastery, and there's a woman sitting there meditating, and I was fascinated. And so we talked about it, and she started explaining how it helps unfold potential. And so I thought, okay, this is for me. This is my sign. And so when I got back to the United States, I started meditating at 19. Wow. And my parents, I'm a first generation American, and my parents were very concerned that I was doing something that was, not Judeo-Christian, that, and I was going to not go to hell, but, I was going astray. And I realized, well, if I could just do research on this, because my parents are both scientists. Wow. And if I could just do research on this and document the benefits of it, then good people like my parents would be able to take advantage. So that's what started me being interested in research, and particular, I was a meditator. And then when I was in graduate school at Harvard, this whole idea of, is human consciousness a field? Basically, are we each, islands of our own, or is there something that connects all human beings? And if you look at physics and models of nature, you see that there are fields, like there's the gravitational field and the magnetic field and the electrical field, and it affects everybody and everything, whether they're aware of it or not. And everything in nature, in the universe, has a field underlying it. And so the question became, is human consciousness a field or not? Do we have the capacity to influence each other or not? And in physics, there's something called superactivity, where where superconductivity, where if you get 1% of a volume, let's say in a flask, to resonate, to go in sync, then it has an impact on the entire fluid content, and it will actually become unbounded and come out of the container and flow.
Wow.
And so long story short is there's also research that shows that human consciousness, that if you have a certain percentage of people doing like an advanced meditation practice, which produces a certain brainwave, it will affect the brainwaves of people like thousands of miles away. And so I came to the Middle East to do research on, is human consciousness a field? And that was at the time that Hamas was lobbing missiles into Israel and from Lebanon, and Israel went into Lebanon. So there was the conflict going on there. And the question came up, is there something that we can do with consciousness to affect this? And the answer was yes. And the research was published in the International Journal of Conflict Resolution, despite the fact that it took us more than a year to get the research published, because they kept, even though the research was solid, the statistics were solid, the methods were, it was outside the envelope of their understanding that just meditating could create waves of coherence and collective consciousness and bring down the number of war deaths, war fatalities, accident rates, sickness rates, natural disasters. So that was a study. But at the same time, being a single white 20-something-year-old Jewish woman in charge of this international project in the Middle East, I was unprepared for the unrelenting animosity and aggression that was directed at me, and a contract was actually taken out of my life. And so I went limping back to Harvard.
I was going to say, when you're telling the truth, people aren't ready to hear it. So,
well, it's also, who wants conflict resolution, and not everybody wants to resolve conflict.
Yeah, I know.
And so I ended up with PTSD. Long story short, and I had the best medical care. I had Harvard Medical School. My father was on the faculty of Columbia Medical School.
Wow.
And nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. I was already meditating and, healthy lifestyle and, positive side of everything, but nothing was making a difference. And then my significant other learned the breathing practice, and he came back to me and said, I think that this is exactly what you need. And I really wasn't interested, but I did a little bit of research, and then I thought, I have nothing to lose. And so I learned it, and within weeks because I was sleeping like 14 hours a night. I had, an autoimmune response where my skin was like literally like blistering and peeling off like every day.
Wow.
And it was so bad that I actually had to withdraw from the doctoral program at that point, even though I had a full scholarship at Harvard.
Wow.
So it was really the dark night of the soul. And with the breathing practice, as you can see, I'll be 70 this year. I have my vitality back, no cosmetic surgery, nothing. This is me. I got my vitality, my energy back. And so my commitment became, this is the best kept secret on the planet. This is the best service I can do to humanity, is to help get the word out. And because science is the language of the time, and apparently it's in my DNA because both my parents are scientists, it just became a natural. And so I actually called Sri Sri Ravi Shankar in India, because in the early days, this was 32 years ago now, because in the early days of the organization, I had his phone number. I mean, I still do, but and called him, and I said, because it's a very spiritual practice as well. It brings you in touch with your true self.
Sure.
And so I didn't even know if he wanted research done, because it was a spiritual and service.
There was no research done at the time then?
There was none at the time.
Wow.
And so I called him. I said, would you like there to be research? And he said, oh, yes. And so then I said, well, would you like me to do it? And he said, oh, yes. And so that started it.
Unbelievable story.
Later, I still am grateful. It's like I have such gratitude. It's mind-boggling to me that I get to do this with my life.
Wow.
And so that's why I do this.
So
and
beautiful.
People say to me, "Aren't you going to retire?" It's like, heck no.
No way. We don't even have that word. We don't even know that word.
On the beach?
Ronnie, the word is not in our vocabulary in any language.
No. There's no such thing. I mean, you can't retire from your life purpose. Not
even that. It's your medicine.
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
I want you to answer Camila's wonderful question. Can you read the whole question? Can you see it on the side there?
Hold on, I'll put on my glasses and I'll see. Camila, yes. How can I inspire a skeptical friend to take the Sky Breath course? She's going through a very rare autoimmune disease. Doctors don't even know what it is. She started taking immune suppressor this week. It's like having no active immunity at all. Okay. So 2 things. Hi, Camila. Thank you for your question. You can appeal to her heart and you can appeal to her intellect. If you go on the Art of Living research, on the Art of Living website, and you click on research, you'll see the gamut of research that has been done, how this particular breathing practice enhances immune function, cardiovascular function, and particularly the mental health issues, which are really important, because we know that with autoimmune disease, when people feel depressed, when people feel anxious, when people feel worry, when people feel sorrow, that it actually causes the autoimmune disease to flare. And so you can talk to her on the level of the heart, that as her friend, you love her and you want her to be able to do something which is evidence-based, which will calm her emotions and improve her quality of life.
And do it with her. Like, get a bunch of people to do it with her, because you can all
which is a great idea. So I would say that. And the second thing is, just talk to her about the contributing factors to autoimmune disease, and stress is one of the major ones. And as we said earlier in the show, everybody has a heightened level of stress response just because of all of the ambient racket, the noise around us. So, and it is a complement to anything else she's doing. And because there's growing evidence in the medical community that a biopsychosocial approach is necessary for autoimmune disease, and the medical community recognizes the limitations of a purely medical physiological approach. And so if she wants to take advantage of modern medical knowledge, then it's her responsibility and her privilege to do it.
Also, it's like she has nothing to lose, because sometimes, we had somebody doing homeopathy, and we said, well, no, what if the person doesn't believe it? Well, they do homeopathy on dogs and horses. Sometimes it can be something that the body will shift your mind. Like, it doesn't have to be an intellectual thing, like you said in the beginning. And what you said in the beginning of the show was about it's our birthright to get better. It's our birthright to feel good. It's our birthright to be healthy. This is not something you just get from the doctor. It is something inside of you. So she's already healing her body. The symptom in many, is the healing. It's the body's trying to heal through the symptom.
Right. Exactly.
So wonderful question. Wonderful question. It's lucky to have you for a friend.
Yeah, she's very fortunate to have a friend like you, Camila. And again, I would simply tell her, look at the research and look at your mood and do everything, and this is a gift that you're seeing how you can take responsibility, and just feeling that rather than being a victim and just doing what doctors say, to be proactive in healing actually also helps to heal the autoimmune disease. Just that sense of,
how many times do we call the doctor and we feel better? Just schedule her the course, send her admission, and she'll begin to feel better. We're talking, beyond, there's placebo, there's hope, there's the biology of belief. Last week we had Norman Cousin's daughter on the show. She happens to live in Israel, and he was such a believer in the endorphins and the belief and the heart, and that we should live life, so there's so much of what you're talking about that could help her, whether she believes it or not, she could go through the motions and all of a sudden fold into the healing.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about her right now. That's the energy. That's what you were talking about, Ronnie. The energies that we're helping your friend heal right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, and we have to use all of our skill when we want to help somebody who's near and dear to us. And so again, I would always go through the head and the heart.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Ronnie, you mean you could, I always say to Rose, you can take a couple nights off and I'll get a co-host and it'll be Ronnie or it'll be someone and sometimes Rose needs a co-host. I think Ronnie, you would do a great job when I need a night off. You were wonderful. Before I even said hello, you thanked me. It was like a perfectly, candid way. Cause every week I come on the show and I would tell people I used to have to drink wine before the show. And now I'm drinking my ginger tea and my coffee because I just open my hip. I'm okay. Because it's a very comfortable, safe place. And you made us all feel very at home. You made us all feel very safe. There's people that came to this broadcast I don't even know. And I'm thrilled to meet you. If people want to reach you and speak to you, Ronnie, how can they reach you? What can I write down here on the page?
Well, they can send it through research@artofliving.org.
Research. Go ahead. At
artofliving.org.
Art of Living one word. .org. And then research at artofliving.org. ORG.
Yeah, and then just in the header, because there are 4 of us who review these emails, just put for Ronnie in the subject, and then send it straight to me.
In the subject. This video will be on our YouTube tomorrow. I'll send you a copy. Great. And I want you to know that we're going to do a show again when Rose can come on. Because I'd love you to meet her, and she'll have some amazing questions about some of the work she's been doing. And I think that I'm just going to look at the breath a whole different way. Yeah. I mean, this is fascinating. And I can't wait to contact the Art of Living, and I'm going to promote it more on my page. I'm going to, I put up the website for the last couple of days, but I'd like to send it to people in different countries. I mean, I would like to maybe take the course. It just, it just sounds so interesting, so amazing. And I like the science, and we all do. We all like the science. And, oh, yes, we can find some science about anything. But this is the breath. We're talking about God. We're talking about a piece of God. We're talking about spirit. We're talking about life. We're talking about connection. We're talking about science, physiology, physics. This is nothing this is not connected to. Absolutely.
Now, tell me something. I'm not sure about this, but in Hebrew, ruach means soul, but doesn't it also mean breath?
It means spirit.
Oh, it means spirit.
Ruach means spirit, but breathing is to nishima sheifa. So nishima, to take a breath in, and neshama. So it's all connected, because in Hebrew, all the words are connected. And ruach is spirit, and ruach is wind. And what is wind? Fast breath, excited breath, angry breath, and
even deep breath, content breath. Breath is breath.
Yeah.
Like water is water, whether it's an ice cube or it's running out of your tap.
It's energy. Tell me something. Does Guru Dev adhere to any yoga or any physical practice?
Oh, yeah. It's a comprehensive program. In fact, when people take the Sky Breath program, there's a little bit of physical stretching. There's the breathing practices, which of course are the cornerstone. But there's also, because, mind and body are connected, there's what I call the golden keys for life. They're what are cognitive reappraisal strategies. There's these wonderful insights into the nature of the human mind and what keeps us bound. And it complements, because once you do the breath and you're more centered, then you're more able to absorb the cognitive processes and to see how, for example, how many of us are footballs of other people's opinion? oh, what are they going to think about me and all of that. And so it addresses that and accepting of the present moment and how we accept it and what happens when we don't accept it. So these things become second nature.
Beautiful.
And, I'll just share with you, if sometimes, I'll feel agitated or off and so I'll count on my fingers of those 5 or 7 different points. Okay, which one is relevant here? Am I being a football of other people's opinions? Am I resisting the situation? And I always when I'm agitated or off, it's always one of those things. And then I remember, and then the whole system settles down. So it's really the most, as I say, I've been doing research in mind body practices and spiritual practices since the 70s. Because I'll be 70 this year. So, I've been doing it a long time, and I have never found anything more powerful, honestly, than the sky breath practice.
Wow.
Because the whole, it's a comprehensive program.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And it looks like the Art of Living Foundation is available to all of us and every one of us. And I always say the best way to heal is to, to teach yourself, to teach others. So, and to learn, rather than just go to a therapist, learn it, whether you're going to teach it or not, become it, learn it, throw yourself into it. And it sounds like it's like for everyday living, everyday life and living. So I'm thrilled to have you on. I'm just honored and always humbled. I hope someday maybe we can go to Masada together. Because who knows, we're aging gracefully. We'll talk about our telomeres another time.
And your colleagues. Yeah.
And once again, we'll see you again. And thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for your effort. And God bless. All the best.
When you say energy, may I just add one final departing thought?
Please.
The world right now is in a place of great need of peace, both globally and for individuals. And the research that I was doing at Harvard when I went to the Middle East was showing that human consciousness is in fact a field. And the mathematical formula is that when just 1% of the population moves in a particular manner, it has an influence on everybody else. So one of the things that Sri Sri has just launched is the I Stand for Peace movement, where each of us takes the commitment to focus on peace and to do what is within our capacity to generate peace, because we influence the people around us. Like I was explaining before, there's a field. And so without doing anything concrete, without saying a word, just by establishing your own inner peace, we influence the whole world, literally. The world is as we are is a literal psychophysiological phenomenon. It's not just beautiful thinking, it's a physiological reality in creation. So I invite everybody to join the I Stand for Peace movement and to make the commitment to peace in your own life, however you can, and just have that awareness, because it spreads like the fragrance of a flower. Beautiful. And that's the last thing that I'll mention we can all do. And of course, the breath ties into that because it brings us to our more peaceful center.
Beautiful. Thank God. Thank God we're dropping pixie dust all over right now. Thank you so much. We'll meet again for sure.
Yes, we will, my friend.
All right. All the best. Bye, dear.
Thank you, everybody, for joining.